Hello and welcome to another video. This one is probably my most requested location, and that is the Gun Hill Road in West Tilbury in Thurrock. I don't know much history about this road, but it obviously is an old road that used to lead down to the Fall. There must be some reason why it's called Gun Hill. Maybe it's something to do with the Fall and Tilbury Fort, that is, that all the items used to come up there, or the artillery or something like that. That's the only reason I can really think of off the top of my head. As I say, this is the most requested location, and it's something that I've been trying to do for a long time, but there is literally so many stories, and it's hard to pick the reports that are worth telling you out of just the normal run-of-the-mill ones that seem to be quite generic for this location. It has so many reports that I've had to print them all off, and I'm just going to pick a few that I think are more typical of the type of reports that seem to be going on all the time now. The first report we have is 1950, and at the time the road was more of an unmade road. It's still quite an important road that linked the two areas, and it goes up a steep hill. And the lady that was driving the car at the time, as she came around the bend, she said she see the lady, you can hear this a lot, a grey lady was standing in the middle of the road, and she slammed on the brakes and the lady just disappeared. And again, this is what you're going to hear again and again and again. So in 1955 we had two more reports almost identical to this. During that time, people had been talking in the village regarding the event that happened in 1950, so people were always a little bit wary of looking out down that road. And again, so we had two more reports in 1955, and along the same lines, a lady was driving down the hill this time, and she see this lady walk across and step in front of her car. She slammed on the brakes and there was no one there. This one happened in the evening, and she's quite spooked about it, and she hurried off home. She told her husband, and the husband reminded her of the story that had already gone around 5 years beforehand. A few days later, the local farmer was driving up the hill and some fog come down, and it came out of nowhere. As he passed through the fog, he said he see this white shape standing in the middle of the road. He couldn't work out if it was a lady, but he said it was solid. So he stopped, and as he stopped, the shape came towards the car but disappeared before it reached the front of the car. This road links Tilbury and East Tilbury and West Tilbury, come down from Tilbury Fort up to Chadwell St Mary, and it links into Linford and into Stamford, so it's quite a major route. So a lot of people would be travelling this road. It is tiny and it's very short and it's quite a steep hill, and it's not a very wide road neither, so if there was other routes available, people now, generally today, don't go that way. But we still do get reports from today about this, and we'll go into them a bit later. But back in 1965, a gentleman was coming down the hill when this shape was in the middle of the road. He swerved and he actually went up the bank and rolled his car up into the bushes. And when he was asked what was it, he said there was something standing in the middle of the road. Swerved and I rolled the car. And when I asked him, was it an animal? We went, no, I don't know what it was, but it weren't real. Whatever it was like a shape, and I just panicked and I swerved to avoid it, and the car flipped. And those sort of stories, that you do hear about them. I wonder how insurance companies deal with that. Why did you crash your car? I swerved to miss a ghost. It does puzzle me. Do they pay out on that? I don't know. Is it a valid reason? I mean, how do you prove that it's real or not real? It'd be quite an interesting one. From then on, what we do see in a lot of reports is of cars breaking down. So actually, from around about 1968, people started saying that it was a very, very common place for cars to break down, either halfway up the hill or come down the hill, or before they got to the hill when they was turning into it, cars would break down. And quite ironically, I've actually broken down there. So back in the 70s, I do remember my mum, my dad and my sister come back from our friends in Tilbury, and my dad come up that road and the car broke down at the bottom of the hill, and that was early evening. That was quite creepy because we had to get out and wait by the car, waiting for our friends that lived in Tilbury to come along and help my dad get his car started. And then just as I started dating Sam, who's now my wife, we left the Wells End pub and went for a drive around there. It was quite a wet day and a wet evening, and we were about to go up Gun Hill and my car broke down, literally at the bottom of Gun Hill. And it was really creepy, and by that time I did know already some of these ghost stories, and that must have been what, 97, 98. So it was about the time I started getting into the paranormal stuff already, so I was quite interested in that, and I did sort of spook them with some of the stories at the time. One of the strange ones we have comes from a lady called Catherine in 1978. Now this has been passed on to a local historian at the time, and they passed the information on to me some time ago, but I find this one quite interesting. Catherine was coming out of West Tilbury and heading up to Linford, and she used the road to come up the hill. As she did so, a big sheet of fog come over the car, but it turned into ice. And then she said that as she put her wipers on, it sort of buckled up ice across her windscreen. And as the ice cleared, she see a lady standing there, all dressed in grey, in like a dress, and she has sort of white hair, and she had like a really sort of taunt, stressful, painful face. And as she approached the car, she sped up towards the car, up to the bonnet of the car, and Catherine was terrified, but again the shape disappeared as it came onto the car bonnet. Now in the past, what I have done, I've tried to research if there's been any fatal accidents there. Now I've not been able to find anything concrete, but locally around the area of West Tilbury and Tilbury and East Tilbury, there's always rumours, and the saying says that sort of in the 1940s a lady was walking up the hill and she got struck by a car coming down the hill and it killed her, and she's said to be the lady that haunts the road. But this is getting on for a ridiculous level of reports. Now if we take every single report at face value, we've got 50 to 60 reports of people seeing something down Gun Hill, which makes it probably one of the most haunted roads in England, which is saying something when you think of like Bluebell Hill and all those sort of stuff. But these reports come through so regular that you've got to start believing there's got to be something there that people are seeing. Could it be fog coming across from the fields of the night time? It does seem to happen sort of like late summer evenings and autumn. We don't get many from the middle of the winter. So when the cold clear nights more coming through, it's that late autumn mist, or that summer haze that comes over the fields where you had a warm day and a cold evening, it creates that mist. It could be something as simple as that. But these people are saying that it was a lady. They see the facial features in most of the cases. So in 1981, we have our first report of pedestrians seeing this lady. So it is a young couple walking up the hill, and they felt a bit creepy, and they said it was getting like really icy cold, and it was a chilly evening anyway, but they thought it was getting colder and colder. And they said it was a very damp feeling in the air, and the boy started feeling a bit icky. And as they carried on walking, they see a shape coming out on the side of the bend. As you go up the hill, it just slightly bends just a little bit towards the top. And they said as they come up around the top, there's a figure standing in the road. And they said it had no legs, it was just floating towards them down the hill. And the girl, completely scared, as you would be if that's something you've seen, so she grabbed hold of her boyfriend and screamed, and they both run off back down the hill. So they didn't actually stand there to see what this was, but they went back and they told their parents what it was. And of course, the parents being locals and they've heard it from their grandparents, they said, oh, that's the ghost of Gun Hill. Again, in the 80s, we have lots of reports of cars breaking down, going up the hill or just before you go onto the hill, mainly at the junction at the bottom, and it's as if something's warning them not to go up the hill. Now this brings us to 1996. We know the date because it's the evening that England lost to the semi-final to Germany in the Euros. A husband and wife had been at a local pub watching football, and they was driving back up to Linford. As they turned into Gun Hill and started making their way up slowly up the hill, it was late at night and the husband wasn't that confident. I'm not going to say he'd been drinking. He wasn't that confident of driving up the hill in the dark, so he kept flicking his beams on. And he was doing so, he sees something shoot across in front of him, and he slowed down almost to a stop, and he put his full beam on, and he see a shape on the side of the road, and it was just sort of like a white figure on the side, and he thought that someone was trying to walk past the car, so he moved over as much as he could on the side of the road to let the person pass, but they didn't. They just stood there. So he started crawling past, and as he got level with the person, he looked outside the driver's window just to see this lady standing there, completely gaunt face, completely white, with white hair, and her face had come right up to the window and just stared at him. And no, that was nothing. He put his foot down or floored off. His wife has seen it. She was screaming. She was hysterical. And they just shot off home. But they, again, said to people locally about what they've seen. And they're like, that's the ghost of Gun Hill. And we have many reports like this. And it can't be a coincidence. It's either something they are really seeing, or someone locally playing tricks, or it could be a weather phenomenon, as I said, just the fog and all that. But that don't tie in with that one. He said he clearly see the face up to the window. So recently I've had more calls to make a video on this one. So knowing I was going to have to do it, I picked my daughter up from work one evening and I drove her down there to film for me. I didn't tell her why, and when I did, it completely creeped her out while she's still filming. You'll see the video after, bits and bobs during this. There is a bit that's cut off, is that I screamed as we went round the bend and made a jump, and she hit stop on the video instead of recording it. So you don't quite hear her completely freak out. But we didn't see nothing on that journey, but I thought I'd just put a bit of footage in there for you so you can actually see the road and what it looks like, and it can be creepy at that time of night. So this brings us up to date, really, just to say that we've had this year, in 2022, we've had 2 more sightings there of the same thing. A lady walking down the middle of the road, and when the cars are stopped, she either comes up to the bonnet and disappears, or she stands at the side of the road and walks past them very, very quickly. So these are the things that are very, very common. We have one occasion in 2015 that is a little bit different. So back in 2015, on a late summer's evening, a gentleman was walking home with his dog. They've been out walking around West Tilbury and over the fields, and they're using the shortcut to go up Gun Hill back to their home. As they was walking back up, the dog started acting quite funny, and around about halfway point in the hill, the dog stopped and wouldn't move. And it started growling, and the man just thought it was probably something in the bushes, and the dog just stood there growling and just stared. But the dog was staring at the middle of the road, not to the side, but at the middle of the road. And he's tugging and he's saying, come on, come on. The dog refused to move and just stood there, and he sort of backed up towards the gentleman's legs and pushed right against the gentleman's legs as if it was scared, but also as if he was trying to protect the gentleman. And he backed up and he's growling, and at the time the gentleman was like, he couldn't see nothing, there's nothing there at all, and he's still pulling the dog to move, and he's getting quite frustrated, and he's bending down, he's thinking, no, it's quite an heavy dog. He tried to pick it up and the dog was like rigid. He's just like, I'm not going to move. And he's just growling and just staring in the middle of the road. And as the gentleman looked back up, there was a mist started to form right in front of him. And in that fog, or the mist, there was a more whiter shape in the centre of the fog. And he said he couldn't be 100% sure, but he said he thought he could see a face just staring at him in the fog. The dog was really going for it now. Started barking, growling, barking. And all of a sudden the dog just leapt forward as if he was trying to protect the owner from being attacked. And of course the owner's got the dog on the lead and he's pulled him forward. As he's been pulled forward, whatever it was in the fog shot out towards them. And he said he felt this cold blast of air go right through him. And it left him like, with chills and goosebumps all over him, as if something had literally just passed through his body. That's the only report we've had of something like that where they've actually had that contact with it. Again, was it an ice wind? Was it the mist? Is it a natural phenomena? Was he seeing things? I know humans, we like to make shapes and stuff out of stuff we can't understand. Could it be that? But he's really convinced, and I did ask him if he wanted to come onto the video and talk about it, and it's not that he'd be ridiculed for it, he's quite open, but he said no, he's quite happy for me to tell the story, and people will know this story. He said it locally to people, and again they just say, oh yeah, that's the ghost of Gun Hill. And I do know by reading your Facebook comments, when on the other videos you said, when are you going to do Gun Hill, when are you going to do Gun Hill, and you sent me your own stories on Gun Hill that I've not put in here because you put them on Facebook already. There's no point me retelling them on here because you can just read the comments on Facebook, but in future put them on YouTube. It helps me with my algorithms and it gets the video seen more. So comments on my YouTube video really help more than on Facebook. But again, it's one of these situations where you get a location that's got so many reports about it, you have to start questioning, is it we're all going crazy? Is there a natural weather phenomenon that goes on that we'll see? Or is there actually something there? Is there something paranormal there? Now, I've not done an investigation. I say, you see, I've driven down the road, but I don't know if I'd feel comfortable going down there because it's a dangerous road of a night time. You could get hit by a car, and now if that is the case, that's what's happened to this lady, and she haunts it. She's obviously not very happy about being struck by a car, and she's not forgiving anybody because, again, what we do know, cars still break down quite regularly going down Gun Hill or going up Gun Hill, and especially at the junction turning into it. Now, it's not just Gun Hill, and I forgot the name of the road, but the road that goes along the top of Gun Hill, that seems to have its own separate ghost. And I will go hopefully into another video. I'm just doing a bit more research on that, and I want to get some more video of it. And yeah, if you do know, I'm not going to name the road, but if you're local and you know that area, come forward, tell me what your story is on that road that links at the top of Gun Hill. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. If you do like it, give it a like, and if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. I'm trying to get the videos seen as much as possible, but it is a shorter video, this one. But again, let me know your comments below, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.
You have arrived.
Should I stop? This isn't going to go very well because you're going really fast and my hand's really wobbly. And I can't put it on the thing. I'm assuming you're going to put stuff over this, hence why I'm talking. You're telling me that we could see a ghost?
Yeah, it's road ending. It's one of the most common ones around here. She's meant to stand on the road and try and stop it.
Oh, Dad, stop! That's not funny. Can you do my window up? Thank you.
People have had her coming right up to the
Oh, stop, Dad, no, I can't see that.
Can you point at the camera?
It is. I'm just looking away.
No, you've got to look out where you're pointing.
Shut up.
Well, no, because you've got to follow. If she jumps out,
Oh,
you've got to follow.
la, la, la.
You concentrate.
What was it?
Oh, I've got to go back and do it again now.
No, you don't.
I do.
No, you don't. Cool, that looks like a person there.
Well, this is it. So see this here, this bush. Over night time, people could easily confuse that with something else.
Oh, I know.
Especially if it's foggy. Right, you can stop it now.